Hello everyone! Welcome back to another episode of Factional Fight Plays Wurm Online. My name's Brian, that's my brother Adam, and there's been a lot of changes to Wurm Online recently, and we just wanted to discuss some of that with today in our episode. We know that there's a new UI system coming, and we know that there's lots of stuff being discussed in the news every single week, and we wanted to just have a night where we discuss a little bit about everything Wurm, and while we work on our Labyrinth and talk about what we've been doing. You want to know? Just stay tuned. And we're back. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks.
Feels like it's been a while, like at least a week or so.
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
and we have been hard at work at our Labyrinth, I should say. Last episode we were building bridges, and also we were building the first half of the castle. And so what have we been doing? We've been finishing the castle. Here you can see that we actually finished the outside of it. We haven't finished the inside, so it still kind of looks like a mess. Let's take a look inside here. Yeah. Just a bunch of stairs, so just a bunch of ladders. But eventually, just like we were saying in that episode, we'll start at the top, we'll fill in, the floors and everything that we need, and we'll work our way down. So that'll be step number 2, and then of course do the second half, which I was standing on right here.
Yep,
and it's
do
just
it all over again.
do it one more time, because one time is never enough. And then of course cleanup. We always talk about the cleanup.
Oh,
We
yeah.
have so much of this junk. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yep.
And what is this? Drakeling, your red cart's still in the middle of our castle. But if you want, you can come pick it up. Anytime would be great. So
Yeah.
what else have we been doing in this castle? I know that it hasn't just been that. We've definitely started working on a number of the buildings. We did finish those. I love how we finished the bridges out here. And I know that there's quite a few more bridges that we'll need to do as the houses are getting completed, but they are getting completed, pretty quickly. Like even this one here, you finished the top of this house, which I have not named yet. And
Yeah, you
it's
had
a
the
little-
couple floors done, and
Yeah.
I just was like, all right, I'm just going to work on it, and got it right up to the top.
That's awesome. So how's the inside of that?
It's pretty much the same as the castle. It's all ladders right now.
Let's do that this episode. We'll
Yeah, I
build
think
this house. I see you've done a little different roof to that than what was
Yeah.
in the plan.
yeah, you had a plan where like on the fifth, I think it was like the 5th floor, and then just a roof on top of it.
Mhm.
Issue with that is that inside you have a lot of inner walls,
Yeah.
and there's that issue with roofs and walls on the top floor where if there's an inner wall, you can basically see over it. You can't see over it into the other room, but you can see that
Yeah.
the wall doesn't go up to the roof essentially.
I
So-
see.
I dealt with this a lot in Linton, and I basically settled on I don't want any of that in Linton, and I came up with creative ways of making sure that that sort of thing didn't happen, that the roofs sort of contained the room that it was over. And one of the ways is to basically make another story. So for your top floor that you had planned there, the only way I could have seen it, and I probably could have maybe another way of doing it, but I basically made it so each individual tile either was 5 stories or 6 stories, so it like alternated. So there's like these little spikes on top.
I see. So that'll definitely look better because I do have a lot of inner walls in that building.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
pretty much 1 by 1 rooms, the whole thing.
yeah, I just finally I know in a previous episode I said I didn't have 30 thatching to do these roofs on the Grimgrot's villa, and it was just sort of empty. Now it's done thanks to Wolfmare. Wolfmare. Thank you for coming and finishing that for us. He saw our video and had 30 thatching. So now I can stick with, what do I have? 24.28. Maybe one day I'll raise it. He did mention that he got it up by improving thatch roofs
Okay.
instead of making thatch. That's a good idea, actually. I might eventually do that when I have some time.
But to be honest, I got you, like, you were at 23 some odd, and I got to 24 some odd by doing thatching, and it literally took me 12 minutes or so. So
Did you say 12 minutes?
yeah, like 12 minutes. In 12 minutes of thatching, I got almost, it was like close to 1 full skill at that level. So I think it's doable to get to 30.
Yeah, definitely should spend some time on that. So what else did we do in our village? I think the main part was the castle. The castle took a long time getting all the materials
Right.
and building it. Just by doing this, we started running out of mortar and started running out of
Yes,
marble bricks and that sort of stuff.
We'll be
We're gonna have to
make
do another
order
round.
soon.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But while we were doing this, a number of things got brought up in the news recently, and I don't know, I feel like I know we said this before, but every single week just seems to bring something new into the game, where they're announced something new that we haven't heard before or only heard mention of, and they're showing us. And this last few weeks they just talked about animals in cages.
Right.
It almost sounded like they were almost ready, like they're coming really soon.
Yeah. They had all the graphics and what is it called, the textures and stuff, the models.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have been waiting for something like this, and I know we've suggested, and a lot of people have suggested that, why can't we just mount the animals on our boats, sort of
Right.
thing? Like, why can't they just be passengers and like have them standing on the boat or whatever? And what do you think of this solution that they've come up with?
Well, I think that, like, originally the main issue that a lot of people are having is that, like, if you live on an island, let's say, that there was no way of getting certain animals to that island, and if they didn't spawn on that island, then you would never have access to those animals. I think sheep are one of those animals. Whatever. So a lot of people were crying out for ways of, like, transporting animals, and also cross server. I think the issue for cross server was, like, keeping the database information for that server, like, intact.
Right.
So if, like, a horse comes across, I think that this solution is pretty much what people imagined it would be. There's, like, a container, and you're gonna load that horse or whatever, that animal, into the container. Container is loadable onto a boat, and then you sail across server, and you take the animal out of the cart or whatever, and it retains all of its, like,
It's the same animal.
It's the same animal, but
right.
For some reason, I think that something's going to be missing. Like, for example, the parentage might not
Really?
be there, because the animal, if you cross servers, the parents are on another server, and for some reason, I don't think that the database connects the two. I'm not sure exactly. I was reading up on some of it, but
Yeah, maybe they'll figure that out before it gets into the game. Who
maybe.
knows? But this is basically what you're saying is what people wanted.
Yes,
They like the
everybody.
implementation that they made with this.
Totally.
Put animals in carts and load animals into, or put animals in cages, load animals into something like
Right.
boat. Can they go into
this-
carts? Can they go into like wagons?
into wagons. I'm not sure what the size of these are going to be. It hasn't been announced, but a lot of people are really hoping that they're able to, at the very least, be able to transport a wagon plus 4 animals into a large boat. So let's say, for example, you have a corbita, which is one of the smaller, like, of the large boats. It's like not as big as a. Wait, is it? I can't remember which one's bigger. Is it a Nar or a corbita bigger?
Nar and corbitas have the same amount of
Similar.
items that can go on. It's similar, I think.
Okay.
Maybe
I think
corbita
they're
might hold
different,
more.
but
I don't know.
in any case, whichever one of the large ones holds the least. Like that. The hope is at the very
Cog
least.
holds very little.
Okay, cog holds very little. At the very least, that you're able to hold a wagon plus 4 horses, so that you're able to, travel to another server and
For exploration purposes.
for exploration purposes, hunting purposes, for whatever purposes that and you have a wagon available to you.
Don't limit the big boats and make us automatically choose one over the other based on limitations that the game imposes.
Right.
You say, give us the ability to choose which boat we like the best by allowing us to bring wagon and at least 4 animals so that we could go to another server, unload, and just travel inland.
Exactly. Like, you remember when we went to Indy and we relied on other people to provide us with,
That's right.
horses or whatever, right? Like, if we didn't have the connections or we didn't have friends there waiting for us, then we would pretty much be on foot the whole way.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Another thing that it will open up is markets for horses. So people can now deliver their horses much more easily and cross server even to sell their
That's
horses.
true. I wonder if people will start doing that sort of thing.
I would bet on
horses.
it. I would bet on it. Yeah.
Do you think that would raise or lower the prices of horses?
That's a hard one. It might. I don't know. Actually, it's really hard to predict that.
Or would it even affect it just because they're already so low? The prices are already pretty low.
Yeah, the prices are pretty low.
To travel like so far just to deliver horses.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll find out, but I'm glad that they put into the game. Let's look at what we're doing on this floor. So this building itself is more like I wanted to reminisce over a building that I made, or part of the castle that I made at Autumn Twilight. So there was one part of the castle, one building, that had this sort of puzzle. And the puzzle is, as Adam works his way through that motion of building. That's a funny animation. One of the buildings was basically try to make your way through kind of like just door after door, trying to figure out a way to get through. And each way, there'll be multiple ways that you can get through this building, but only one way is correct. The other ways could lead to dire consequences, or as much of a consequence as I would want to give at this stage in the labyrinth when you get to this building. So the whole premise is that you start on one level and you're trying to find the drop to the next level down. So there'll be like a door that just leads to a drop, and you'll make your way down to the next level, and then you'll keep going that way until you make it to the bottom level. So looks like we haven't really finished the top level here. This is going to get really confusing. So why don't you, because I know you have the D planner open.
Right.
So why don't you create all of the plans and just put like one brick and mortar into it.
Okay. Well, at the moment, I basically did, like, the one concern was that there's a couple walls as opposed to doors.
Yes.
and I've already finished the walls. So
I
everything
see.
else should be doors. So if
I see.
that might save us a little bit of a headache.
Okay. All right. So I'll just start the plants then, and do
Yeah,
the walls or do the
yeah,
doors
everything
here.
should be doors.
So what is the second major thing that was announced recently? Was that they are in full flight testing of the highway system.
Right.
All right, remind me what the highway system is and like what it does.
Right. So essentially, like prior to this system, there was the highway rule, which essentially it was a GM enforced rule that basically said that you can't destroy any highway. And they had a specific definition of what a highway was. And uh, I guess they are now implementing an in-game system that will on its own enforce the highway rule, so the GMs don't have to really worry about it. And it's a way that players can mark off this road is a highway, which is kind of nice.
Okay.
They're also implementing some other features to this system that allows you to link deeds. So like I think now a highway must connect between two deeds at minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And once they are connected, then you can do things like put like I don't know the terminology perfectly yet, but I think they're called waypoints or something like that. Like their signs essentially come up
Yeah.
and they kind of look like pointing signs, and it'll tell you what deed is which direction and how many tiles away it will be.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's kind of really
Huh.
cool. I
That
mean,
would be
it
completely
removes
new.
the yeah, it removes the need to like plan out those signs and um, before we'd have to manually put out those signs, but now it's like sort of embedded in the system.
Have they figured out like if somebody wants to deed near a highway, like how that would work? I assume they've
Yeah.
done all the ins and outs of that sort of thing, like, or let's say somebody wants to move part of a highway. You know, before you're like,
Mm,
you could deed here over the highway as long as you either accept that there's a highway going through your place and keep it open, or move the highway
right.
around your place.
Right. I'm not sure if there's something in place to do that. Like if yeah, because before if there was a highway by the definition of a highway, you could deed over it.
Yeah.
There was nothing blocking you from deeding over it so long as you kept the highway open,
Mm-hmm.
or diverted the highway around. Yeah, you're right. I don't know if there's going to be a thing in place to prevent deeding over highways.
It'd be nice to know. Nice to know. I'm sure they're thinking about it. I'm sure they have a working solution
Mm-hmm.
that is flexible at the moment. Maybe they're still trying to work out some kinks. But right now, you could go on the test server and figure that stuff out yourself. So,
Yeah, pretty
uh,
much.
yeah, I
We've never
don't
been
think it's a
test
secret.
server type people, I guess. I don't think.
No, I've been on it a bunch of times, and
Yeah,
I did a bunch of testing, especially when I was working on the sounds.
right.
I did that a lot, but not recently. Yeah, recently I haven't been on the test server, but definitely if you have time, go onto this test server and try it out because you don't, especially if you don't want to be surprised by it.
Hmm.
There's like a viable solution on the test server that you can voice your opinion and even try to shape what that system's going to look like when it gets
Right.
to our server. And I think that's great. The fact that the dev team is open to our criticisms of the
Right.
system so that we can shape and build it together as a
It's very important.
community.
It's very important to have people willing to go onto the test server and test these features before they go live because, like the feedback of real players is really important for the development of the system.
Yeah.
But, for me, the issue is just time. Like, and also my preference of, like if I do have time to sit in front of my computer and play video games, my preference is to play the video games as opposed to test personally.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that way as well.
Yeah.
But I know that at certain points, I had enough time to definitely go on to the test server, and I wanted to go on to the test server and test it. It makes you feel good about the game knowing that there's that option
Right.
to do stuff so closely with the devs,
Yeah.
so that
And
you can shape what the real game will look like.
right. And in this game, it's like there's so much opportunity for you as a player to shape how the game is going to shape up, and the devs do listen to the players. People don't feel like that they do, but I think in this game more than nearly any other game, the dev team listens to the player base and weighs their options, but takes into consideration the players a lot more.
And hey, most of the devs were just players anyway to begin with, so
Yeah, pretty much.
they just want the game to succeed, so that they can play it and have fun.
Right. I think Retro, after the fact, after our interview with him, was commenting on how, he was just about to sit down to a play session. He's like so happy that he can sit down and play the game, and that he wishes that he had more time to play because he spends a lot of his time, doing what he does
on the forums, talking to
on
players,
the forums, doing his job.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how he's, enjoys getting into the actual playing of the game
just as much as us.
just as much as us. Yeah.
So, talking about things that they're going to add to the game and the announcements they made in the past, they have announced many times that they are working on a new user interface, complete revamp. I assume is what they've been talking about. Like, they're going to completely change how we interact with the game. They haven't said how they're going to do it, just that they are going to do it.
Right.
So, of course, all we can do is speculate. How are they going to change the game? And that's what I think we should do in this episode right now.
Right. I agree.
There's been a lot of talk. There will be at least two sides to this thing, right? You'll have the players say, I love the way that it is right now. I just wish you would change such and such and such about it. Just tweak. And everyone will have their opinion on what they feel should be tweaked. If only this was like this, or if only, just make it so it could fit 4K screens or something, or, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then you'll have the other side where people will say, this is such an old and archaic system. You should really think about inputting a system that's more modern and current age. Where do you stand?
Personally, I think that Wurm would do amazing with a complete overhaul of the UI, one that brings into the modern age. And the reason is because there are still new players coming into the game. There's I see them in the in the chats. I see them when I'm playing, and chances are that new player won't stick around. Like, by the information that we've gotten from the devs in the past, majority of people who try the game out don't last. And Wurm Online is a place that people will go when they see Wurm Unlimited in Steam and they want to try it out because Wurm Online has that free trial.
Yeah.
And that first impression is something that makes a big difference. And you look at all the people coming from Steam, they have access to so many other games that are way more modern and like as each month passes, there's just another one of these sandbox games to try. And if Worm is to succeed and continue growing in the future, it needs to have a complete overhaul. And that's, whether I'm going to like it or not, I really feel like for the longevity of the game, it's super important to make that first impression extremely, like impactful.
Will you feel sad to see this interface go, even though it is archaic?
I might, I'll feel a little sad. I'm the type of person though who embraces change. I never really feel like, I know there's people who really set in their ways, and that's understandable, and who like the way it is, and there's going to be people who want the option to keep the old UI.
Do you think that should be an option?
I really don't think so. I really feel like this game needs to be like thrust into the next generation of gaming. And
Do
I
you
think that
like customization over a streamlined interface that everyone needs to get around?
so you're basically asking, like, should they implement something that allows players to customize exactly how the user interface will look for them?
Yeah.
I think there should be that to an extent. It shouldn't be fully customizable to an insane amount, but I think there should be some ability to manipulate the UI to suit each individual's needs. I don't know. What do you think about that?
With more customization, I think comes a harder introduction into the game, I guess. Not that there shouldn't be customization, just that it should be a completely optional, kind of more advanced way of looking at it if you want customization. Like, I'll give you an example. When I played Vanguard, Saga of Heroes, it was a good... yeah, it doesn't exist anymore. Although I did see an emulator recently that you can actually get back into the game.
Oh, yeah.
And it reminded me how the user interface should not be in this day and age.
Okay.
Because in order to get the user interface to a playable and usable state, you log into the game and then you spend, maybe 10 minutes, maybe the first time that you do it, maybe like 30 minutes, trying to figure out where everything should go in your user interface, because everything doesn't come by default set up properly for you, even for like a standard player. There's hotbars missing, there's things in places that are sort of, you move around, and the same could be said for Wurm right now, right? You start the game and there's no like default location that everything kind of is for players to learn from, before they get into the advanced stages, where then they can kind of
what's
things.
funny is that I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos on Wurm Online and Wurm Unlimited, and a lot of people are playing with the UI as it was set up initially, which is a mess. Like, it's just I don't know how they play with it like that, or how they can put up with it like that, but for me it's like, when I first logged into Wurm Unlimited for the first time and the UI was there, it was like, okay, I gotta get rid of this, I gotta put this over here, I gotta like make this smaller. It's like a whole ordeal to set it up.
I mean, I could say a lot of things about it, but essentially we need to have one standard UI that's great for everything. That's great for most things. Like, everything needs to already be in a spot that makes sense. I love the minimalistic side of things. That's why I delete a lot of things, and I think you're the same, where you're like, I got to get rid of this, I got to get rid of that.
Right.
It's not necessary for me to see those.
Right.
We shouldn't have everything on, right?
Yeah.
We don't need to see like all these things, like, and that's how this user interface is. Everything has its own window, and everything has to like pop up and be there just in case you need to use it.
Right.
I'm hoping that changes with the new UI. I love seeing the game and not seeing the windows.
Right.
And it's very hard with this game to do. It's very hard to see the game, and you just see it now. For just what we're doing right now, I need to have my inventory open, I need to have the wagon open, and I need to have the crafting window open, and that takes my complete screen away of, full HD, 1920 by 1080 display is like encompassed by those 3 items.
Right.
And before, we never had the crafting window, so things kind of look like this, and you could kind of get away with making this smaller, making the wagon window smaller, making the inventory smaller, and kind of getting like a nice window of the game. And now you have to add that crafting window, and you could even make it smaller here, but it's still another window. Now I'm seeing much less of the game. And maybe we could get back, and what my hopes are is that we'll get back to playing the game within the game environment and less in the Windows environment, in a window, if that makes sense. All right, so I'm gonna go with you, since you have the D planner open.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to basically put walls up like this one.
Yep.
And these ones are going to be the straight walls. But before we do that, do you want to do the floors of the upper floor?
Yeah, we could.
Okay, so you can go around and destroy, and I'll follow up and make.
Okay.
And I think that there's a couple that need to be... Hold on, let me just double check this. There's a couple that need to be...
You'll have to...
I'll have to figure that out, yeah.
You'll have to figure it out.
So you start destroying, and I'll start making, and then...
Goodbye, Faith.
While you're destroying the first one, I'm going to go around and I'm going to put up walls.
Yeah.
And the walls I put up are going to be the full-on walls, like no door.
Is there a way to delete... Oh, alright, here we go. Is there a way to get rid of the sound of me bashing?
You can turn it down using your equalizer, your system.
So there's door sounds, combat sounds, action sound. Is it action sounds?
I think that you should just go into your Windows volume mixer.
Let's save that.
Wurm. Just turn down Wurm.
Oh, but I want to hear the birds,
Yeah.
I don't think that did it.
So another thing about the UI is that I know that at some point or another they implemented essentially oops, sorry. They implemented a way to turn on a free look mode.
Yeah.
Did you ever try that free look mode?
I never did.
Yeah, me neither. So I couldn't even talk about it in terms of like it was. Or
I feel like I did try it once. And hold on, OBS is not displaying the game anymore. So let me get that going.
Okay. Technical difficulties.
There we go. Okay, so did I try the free look? I did try the free look once.
Mm-hmm.
It was not complete. If I remember correctly, essentially what we had was a bunch of like the Minecraft free look. It even you could add the crosshair, I think, in the middle. But then every time you wanted to interact with anything, it was just, you know,
You had to turn off the free
just
look.
turn off the free look. Yeah.
But wasn't there like a button to turn off the free look?
They tried to. Yeah, there was. I can't remember what it was. They tried to make it so that the selection window, like this window here, you could use that by pressing 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever.
Right.
And they were hoping that they could get something together like that, but it's kind of like a band-aid solution. I don't know.
Right.
If that makes sense. It wasn't.
It felt like it was like
wasn't
just sort of
what Wurm could use within this UI system. Right? You can't. The system is so based around Windows and like mouse clicking, and you can't get away with that from that unless you do a complete UI overhaul, which is what they're doing. So
right
now, if they
Right,
do
so-
it right, they could get to that.
So now it's like we're ready to talk about free look mode, because I really feel like when they were talking about free look mode before, my mind immediately went to like the best situation, like the optimal, like, and I thought that free look mode would be amazing for this game.
In what way? Like how would
In
you
the way that
envision
it would. So I thought that it was going to be in a way that would make the game a lot more immersive, in the sense that, you walk around and the mouse will be your way of looking at everything, right? Like with currently the way it is, you have to click the left mouse and then you like look around,
Yes.
right? But I envisioned sort of like the reverse. So like you'd be looking around and then you would left click on the thing that you wanted to interact with, and there would be a crosshair just like there is in the current free look mode, and very similar to how you would see it in other sandbox games like Minecraft or whatever else. It seems like the more modern way of implementing a UI where you are essentially controlling your character when you're not pressing any of the mouse buttons. And then when you want to interact with something, that's when you press a mouse button.
Yes.
Now, if you think about like even just Minecraft, for example, Minecraft is built in a way where one button pretty much does everything. And that button is the left mouse button, right? It's like the action button. You want to do something, you press the left mouse button. And what you end up doing is dependent on a couple things. Number one is the tool that you have selected, and number two is what it is that you're interacting with, right? The combination of those two things dictate exactly what ends up happening. Now, I think that kind of system would be perfect in Wurm. Like, it would work very nicely.
So
right?
you believe that that Minecraft has borrowed so much from Wurm,
right?
that it's time to get payback.
Pretty much.
Okay. All right. So sorry, you're saying how it was going to work?
Well, I mean, like, I don't know how it's going to work, but like this is how I envision it working. It already has the activate, like you activate a tool or whatever, right?
So how do you activate a tool?
Like currently, to activate a tool, there's a couple ways. You can double click it in your inventory, or if that item is on your tool belt that you would drag onto your tool belt, you would just single click it on your tool belt.
I assume that we cannot keep that in a Minecraft type UI environment where you just like double click the item in your inventory.
Right.
So how would you solve that issue? How does Minecraft solve that issue?
The way Minecraft solves that issue is that they have something similar to a tool belt, like in Worm, except for it's by default you have it, like it's just there, and you would just click and drag the item into your tool belt, and you use your mouse wheel. Like actually, there's a couple different ways. Your mouse wheel scrolls through the items on your tool belt, and I think 1, 2, 3, 4 also selects, like all the numbers select the item in your tool belt. So it's very similar to how you would have, like I know I have my tool belt set up so that if I press 1, I activate the first item, and if I press 2, I activate the second item. So it's like pretty much that's how I would envision it. That you have your tool belt and you press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever number, and it activates the tool that's in your tool belt. And in order to activate tools, you have to set up your tool belt to click and drag them onto there.
Do you feel that that would work in Worm, given that the tool belt that you normally get, it has 2 items?
Right. I mean, it does lend itself to the progression aspect of Worm, where you will immediately feel the need to get a better tool belt.
That's true.
You know, where if you only
But
have
is
2
it
tools,
playable?
is it playable? So like the question is like, okay, I need to go mine now. In order to mine, I have to click and drag I have to, load up my pickaxe into my
Sure.
tool belt. It's hard to say. Is that playable? I don't know. The thing about it in Minecraft, you have to like open up your inventory and you have to load up the tool that you want. That's sort of how it would have to be. You'd have to open your inventory, and by doing so, it would activate your mouse cursor, and you would be able to move around the mouse pointer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's something that we would want in Worm.
And then let's say, okay, I'm going to want to improve an item. Doesn't matter
Right.
what item.
So
How would that work?
improving, I thought about this, the improving thing. I really feel like improving needs to be done through like something that's similar to the crafting interface. In fact, it could probably just be integrated into the crafting interface or something like this.
There should be like a crafting central window. Is that what you were looking for?
Right.
Separate?
Yeah. I mean, currently the way it works is that you have to do it in whatever window that the item is in. I don't see any reason why we can't have sort of like I don't know, some kind of system in place where you have an item that you're going to improve. Now that I'm saying these words, I really am actually thinking of a reason why we shouldn't have that. Right? Specifically for if you're like imping 5 items and you do that thing where you're like you queue up, the action for the next 5 items.
Yeah. It would have to solve that. That window
that
would
situation.
need to have that figured out.
Mm-hmm.
How many items could you possibly try to imp at the same time?
As many as your actions allow. So
I don't know. Do you feel with the new UI they should change the way that items are displayed to you? I mean, right now, it's old. The way that they're displayed to you is in a giant list, like a directory tree list sort of thing.
So you're wondering if they should be displayed in like a box, is like a little.
Okay,
like all
that's
the
one
new
option.
are.
You have here's the 2 major ones that I can remember. Right, you got the boxes, or that type of system. A lot of games do that. You've got the Diablo style ones where different items take more space than other items in your boxes. And then you have sort of the system where the items are icons are displayed as icons that you can just move around anywhere that you want. Let's say you have your bag as a graphic, as a background, and your items are just everywhere. And
Right.
it's like a mess. It's like a real bag, and you have to like move things around to, like, items could be on top of other items. You'd
So
have
it's
to
kind of
organize
like
it graphically.
your desktop.
Yes, but like more confusing. I
Right.
don't know if people want that.
No,
Yeah,
I don't. I wouldn't want
I
that.
don't think I want that either. I feel like boxes is the way to go,
Hmm.
unless you're wanting to figure out some other UI. Maybe there's more. I haven't really seen a lot of games, especially we're looking at games specifically for holding lots and lots of items.
Mm.
Or they could take what we have and make it look better.
Right.
So a lot of games
Have
have
you
this sort of
seen?
thing. Mass Effect has
I don't
just
know
a
if you.
giant list.
I don't know if you've seen
It's like a really
Skyrim.
old Mass Effect.
In Skyrim, there's a
Yeah,
mod. There's a mod for Skyrim called. I think it's called Sky UI, and
yeah, something like that.
it was created specifically to make the the inventory of Skyrim look a lot nicer. And it's very similar to Worm in the sense that it has a list and like the items down the side, and there's like lots of different information about each item that's in a grid format, and it looks really nice. You know, like it looks modern. It looks very nice and I think that would be well suited for Worm because it
Yeah.
has the same sort of qualities.
So there you go. Take a look at, what did you say it was called?
Sky UI. Yeah.
Sky UI. Let's take a look
Yeah.
at it. Sky UI.
I spent a little bit of time on Skyrim relatively recently.
Yeah, it's been a while for me, so you would have a better recollection about what it looks like. So yeah,
If
it
you type
looks
in
it looks
Sky
a lot
UI,
like what
yeah,
we have in this game, except more modern. Does that
more
make
modern.
sense?
Yeah. If you just type in Sky UI into Google and just look at the um,
I see. Okay, so
images.
you have the list of items, but instead of having these kind of categories that we create, it would be tabs that you create at the top.
Right,
And
tabs on the top.
so we could create tabs. Let's say right click, create armor, and then click there and drag things into that tab.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much.
So then that changes a little bit. Not much. It would make it look nicer. That's for sure. How would we solve the problem of needing to activate items or improving items in a manageable way?
That's a
Do you,
really hard one.
do you feel there should be like a universal crafting sort of window that people could use that has some limitations? Because right now, like, you already have limitations with your inventory, right? We already have limitations with the tool belt.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to activate an item, you activate it in your inventory right now because you don't have the amount of slots necessary with the tool belt. But with a crafting window that allows you to have those slots, it could make life a little bit easier, but still they could have it so they could introduce crafting stations that would solve all of that. And that would be the benefit of the crafting station, to get rid of.
Did in there. I see what you did there. So you'd have a crafting station where you load up your tools and you load up the items that you want to improve, and it sort of like allows you to choose the tool and then choose the item that you want to imp and that sort of thing.
Yeah. It would. So you would have your universal. You would have your universal crafting like window that you could open. It would allow you to imp relatively easy, I guess. Uh, I don't know how they're going to do this within a game that has free mouse look. I'm guessing that when you enter into that mode, the mouse would have to appear.
Right.
Unless they change the whole concept of how you interact with the game, like, completely.
I think that like for most other games, I think that that's how it works. You enter into a window and the mouse appears.
Mm-hmm.
Like think about Minecraft, you press E and it's like the inventory opens up and your mouse appears and you can,
Oh, I missed one.
or like, I don't know. I think that that's sort of like the way that most modern games are built these days.
Well, I'm sure that they have something going on there. But you would definitely want to have that free mouse, that free look feel to Worm that it doesn't have right now.
Right. When you're actually like interacting with the world, when you're walking around, you're like, I want to pick up that item, or I want to chop that tree, or I want to build that wall, or whatever. Like that's the part that I think that the free look and the crosshairs and the interaction with the world,
Mm-hmm.
like the action, like, yeah.
Let's take a look at how would they solve that? How would they make it so you could have just a single, left click and it does everything that you want it to do? Like Worm
Right.
is notorious for, having a million things that you can do to one item depending on
Right.
what you're holding or depending on like all that stuff. How would that work?
Right. I think the issue is that, like, for example, let's say you are, I mean, there's clear cut easy ones. Like you are activating a hatchet and you right click a tree.
Yeah.
Or not right click, but left click a tree. I think it's pretty clear what you want to do, right? Like chop down the tree. So the
Yeah.
action button will do that automatically. But I think there's some like odd ones. Like for example, you're holding a shovel and you click on a corpse, for example. Right? So there's a couple things that could actually happen. You could bury the corpse.
Mm-hmm.
You could butcher the corpse.
Mm-hmm.
What else could you do? I don't know. I think those are the
Like main ones, yeah.
two main ones.
That you kind of don't know which one you would want.
Right. So they would need to be like, and there's a lot of situations like this where you're activating a tool or click on an item, and there's more than one possible action that is available for that situation. So I don't know, like there almost has to be, like currently the way it is that there's a menu that pops up and there's options on that menu of what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So there almost has to be a replacement for that menu.
Do you feel that that's what they should do? Have a menu for every single time you want to do something like that?
I don't know. I mean, maybe they need a menu to pop up only when there's more than one possible option.
Or is that the problem with this game? The fact that there are too many things that you could do. I feel like, and I feel like we talked about this before, there needs to be someone on the dev team that determines what the best possible action, the primary action that should be for every possible combination that they can think of. So for your example, what, the shovel on a corpse, someone has to make that decision. This is what I think the most common one should be. And maybe they have stats on that. Maybe, or if they don't, maybe they should start getting stats on that.
Mm-hmm.
What is what is the most common action that is taken when you have a shovel to a corpse?
But what if you want
What
to do the other
people
thing?
choose. Well, there you go. So what I think that should happen is what they kind of started with this menu, which is the selection bar.
Right.
And there should be another kind of bar like that shows you what you're going to do if you left click. And then what you're going to do if you do like another click. Maybe there's a right click.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you're going to do if you like, maybe there should be like 4 or 5, and they could be like, if left clicks your main action, there should be like a right click could be another action, or you could go with like E or F or like another button there could be like further actions down the line, and there should be something automatically set. So they should have, okay, with this combination, berries number 1, I don't know, corpse is like is number 2, like whatever other I dig is number 3, and
Right.
you know, all this stuff. Mining up is number 1, or mining forward is number 1, mining up
Right.
is
So
number 2. Now,
there's
that sort of thing.
there's something that, like, okay, let's take mining's a good example because it has lots of options, right?
Yeah.
You activate a pickaxe, you click on, a cave tile, a cave wall, and it's like you have mine forward, mine up, mine down, prospect, analyze. There's 5 different things that you like that come to the top of my mind of what you would want to do.
Yeah.
Right? So essentially you're saying that you're going to have 5 buttons available to you. And maybe those buttons are just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or left click, right click, 1, 2, 3, or something like that.
And then maybe your mouse button, your mouse wheel changes what your primary could be. Or something like that. Or that you have the ability in the settings to create what your primary is going to be if it's different than what your primary, what they chose for you. So like you decided that you're going to do something different, because there's not always one primary for everyone.
Right.
You have that ability to adjust it if you want. But I feel like there needs to be that foundation, that base, before anything. Are you able to go around and just create the floors?
So what I've done is...
Or is that what you already
What do
did?
you mean? I've done, yeah. I've also created the walls that should be walls. You didn't have any wall plans, did you?
I didn't.
Okay, good. So the wall plans that I've put there are not doors.
Okay.
So that's one thing but I think that the floors should be... We should work on the floors first. Get the top floor first.
Sounds good. Stone, brick floor.
And if there...
Okay.
So there's 2 places that should not have floors.
And you put those...
I left them blank, but I think that one of them has a floor plan now. Did you put a floor plan there?
No. Am I
Hold on.
doing that right now?
Hold on. Let me just finish this one and put my bricks away, and I'll look. Yeah, so it's... No, that one's fine. So...
Yay.
Yeah, that one should be fine. So these 2, I feel like on the floor above there's a wall missing. I wonder, can I do that from here?
Floor above, there's a wall missing.
Well, let me double check the plans. Yeah, there should be a door here. Can I build a wall from the 4th floor if the wall is on the 5th floor?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. I can do that right from here.
All right, so you can kind of see here the bug that's on the unstable client where your horses
Yeah,
get put at the spot where your character's sitting down. It's like you're
yeah.
mounting the wagon and your horses all at the same time. That's funny.
That bug
It's
was
a multicolored
reported,
horse.
and I don't think they have a solution for it yet. I mean, obviously they haven't
Oh,
implemented a solution.
they'll get around to it.
Yeah,
It's all the stuff that you get to when you're using the unstable client.
yeah.
That's okay. Uh, so what else? There's just so much that you have to consider with the new UI,
I know.
and I think it's hard to know if your solution's working until it goes through some rigorous testing, especially in a game like this, because you just never know what players are going to use it for. I don't know what player. The way that I use the user interface is going to be completely different than the way someone else uses it because
Right.
of the way that Wurm is. Right? You can do something completely different for the entire 5 years that you play than another
Mhm.
player that playing for 5 years. And I could never touch a lot of things that you do, and you'll never touch a lot of things that I do. And
Right.
so it's hard to know what's good for everyone, but I think that they should there's a few standard things that I think that they should do. One, get out of Windows and get back into the environment.
Hmm.
That's like, I think, step one. And they could do that by making a lot more things, let's say, transparent, or getting them out of the way until you need them. Maybe there's like a keyboard shortcut that brings them into the game somehow. I always loved the idea of making the UI part of the game experience. The environment. And some games do that very well. Especially a lot of single player games these days will, your inventory, will. That's a bad example. Your interface could be like, I don't know, you bring out a map and like the map comes up and it looks like, a map that you could be holding in the game, sort of thing,
Hmm.
instead of a
Right.
map that is just like in a window. Um, a
And you
lot
see
of
that
things
in
don't
games like
need to be a
Minecraft.
window. Yeah, a lot of things don't need to be Windows. Uh, I don't feel like we need this bar. This was it the target window? That's
Right.
like EverQuest thinking, back in the EverQuest days, and that World of Warcraft made very popular. And like, the days where you needed something like this, you don't need this. You can put how damaged a mob is into the actual game environment. We don't need, I don't know, a lot of these things. We could even remove a lot of this crafting window and put it more into the game environment if we really wanted to. I like that idea more. Putting as much into the game environment as you possibly can. Um,
Right. Yeah, I am completely in agreement with you that you don't need the target window.
yeah.
And there's a
Two,
lot of things like that you don't need.
yeah, two, not necessarily related to the UI, but if we are trying to get players to enjoy the game more than they are now before they decide to leave, like new players, they really need to get rid of the ugly outline of the items.
What do you mean?
How the
Oh,
items outline when you
right.
mouse over them. Uh, there's got to be a better way to do that.
Right. You know, I I think we discussed this before, but what about if there was sort of a way to turn on and off that mode? So, like really quickly, like it's sort of like a building mode or something like that, or and when you turn it on, when you hover over something, it like very faintly glows or something like that, as opposed to the outline.
Yeah, I would much rather have it faintly glow, or have it faintly like a bit lighter than the other one. I guess that's the same sort of thing as glowing.
Yeah.
Just something that indicates that what you're targeting. And yeah, I feel like that could be better. And it's just about making the game environment look better for new players, look better for all of us. Because yeah,
Like
I'm
I
sure they
remember
can think of
thinking,
something better.
I remember thinking, I've played this game long enough that I don't need that outline anymore. Right? So I went
Yeah.
into the options and turned it off. And the one time that I actually really need it is when I'm terraforming.
Yeah.
Right? Because you need to know what the slopes of everything is and where the tile borders are and everything in order
So
to
with the new
terraform.
UI, all they have to do is figure out a way for us to get that information without the need for this big highlighting thing.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So
I don't think you need to highlight it. I don't think you need to highlight for anything other than knowing where the tile borders are.
yeah,
Really all.
they need to reevaluate all of the windows that they have in the game right now and ask themselves, is this really necessary? Is this really needing to be overlaid on the screen, or can we put it into the game a different way? Could we hide it? Maybe it's not a necessary thing for people to see. Maybe it's an optional thing for people to see. For example, do I really need to see these fight options?
Right.
Or could I just have a button that brings up the different fight options so I can change them? Or if I'm in battle, then give me those options to allow me to change it within battle or whatever.
Right.
Which they somewhat do, right? When you get into battle, that fight window opens up into something larger. So something like that. Like I don't necessarily need to see it if I'm building. For things like that. Definitely, I got rid of a lot of stuff here, like mission windows and mission progress. They even had to create an entire window just to tell me what I can turn on and off in the heads-up display, and it's twice the size, if not larger, than the regular options window. They really have to just go through like, could we live without like a lot of these things? Could they implement them in a different way? And I think that, with time, and I think that's why they're spending a lot of time on it, they will eventually be able to figure that stuff out. Anyway, good luck to the dev team. It's a pretty big task, right?
Yeah, totally.
And no matter what you decide, don't worry, there'll always be someone that hates it.
Yeah.
But more people will love it.
Yeah. The real thing is to get the new players, feeling comfortable.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
really, I think, important. Because the people who love this game will stick with it no matter what. It's the people who are, new to the game. They really need a little bit, an easier time. And I know that the UI is something that many people that I've introduced this game to, friends of mine, I say, hey, check out this game. The UI is one of the first things they say is the reason why they can't play this game.
Yeah.
List upon list of all these items, they feel intimidated by it.
I think it's the same, yeah, with me. The two big things that new players tell me the reason why they can't stay is one, they say they can't play in first person view. Well, that's their problem. Like,
Yeah.
at this point, if they can't play in first person view, there's nothing we could really do about them. Should we make it third person? I don't know. And the second is, or the number one reason is the UI. And I think they know this. They know this. That's why they're looking at it.
There's one other thing that people tell me, and that's the timers.
The timers.
I had one friend who was like, went through the old tutorial, and he got to the point where he had to mine a couple tiles, and he was like, no, there's no way that I'm spending 20 seconds per action mining.
Yeah, but let one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Guess maybe mining could start off at 10 seconds per action and
why
still be okay. But
why is mining like that? That's the only skill that starts out like that. And it's like,
I don't know.
So strange. Every other action is fine. It's just mining.
That is kind of funny. And it goes up pretty fast, like if you play and get like better items and then get better skills. And
I recently started on I'm playing on Mystic Highlands, which is Valiant's and Kaylee's server, and they started out fresh, new character, and they have it on 1 time speed, so it's like 20-second mining actions. And I got a hold of a 50 quality pickaxe. I was like, sweet, this is awesome. I'm going to be able to mine quicker. And it was still 20-second mining actions. And I got my mining skill up to 15, I think it is now. And it's still 20-second mining actions. So for the new player, it's not that quick to get to the point where that timer goes down. It's still like a long hours and hours of mining before you start seeing it go down to 19 seconds. And I don't know about that. I really think that needs to be relooked at.
Yeah, you never know. One of these days, right?
Yeah, one of these days.
Just make it so the max timer isn't 20 seconds. But okay. Yeah, that's pretty much our UI.
Yep.
And I just good luck.
Good luck.
I can't wait to see it, but good luck. I'm sure you guys have other things that you think of that we haven't thought of. If you do, let us know in the comments. I'd love to read that. There's a post that I read a little while ago, and it stuck with me. And it essentially was a guy, I guess he was creating a Wurm Unlimited server, and he just simply asked, what are different ways that you could have end game content in this? Like if you look at Wurm right now and you say, what could you add to Wurm that will be considered end game content? And we have to define what end game content means. It's like essentially just like content that you would do after you do what you want to do in this game, if that makes any sense.
After you do what there is available for you to do.
Yeah. So you build some houses, some deeds. You lever the skills that you want to level.
Get it all the way up to 90 plus.
Yeah. You build the items that you want to build.
Yeah, your village is all complete.
So he asked it in the sense that he wants to create a Wurm Unlimited server, and he wants to add those features into his version of Wurm. So he asked for suggestions, like what could people think about, and he put some limitations on it. But for us, it made me think about what they could do for Wurm, because we've talked about this for a long time. Like, you build a house, you level some skills, and then now what? Now what are you telling the player to do? And a lot of people jumped on this guy and said, you're playing Wurm Online. There is no end to this game. You keep going. Right. Like there's no end. And then people were even saying like, we don't need any World of Warcraft type end games. And which I think was just the wrong way to think about it because people are. That's not what he was asking, and I think that tells a different problem altogether. Is that when people hear the words endgame, they think of raiding.
Right.
That's not what endgame is, right?
Right.
Endgame
Totally.
isn't raiding, but that's how people view it. And people, we don't need like the endless progression of fighting gear and like bosses to fight and like dungeons, and it's like that's not what endgame means. Endgame
Right.
are just things and features that you can introduce into the game that allows more diversity for the players and more variety so that it allows them to stick around.
Yeah, and it's not only variety, it's also progression, right?
Progression.
Like it's like what can I do to get my character to get better other than grind my skills? Because you have some people out there who have grinded all the skills that they possibly would want to up to a level that they, they're done. Like they feel done with it.
But you
They
have to
don't want to
think
do
like
that anymore.
grinding skills is one thing that you can do in Worm. Like we can't think like that's what you do in Worm.
Right. Right.
We
That's not the
grind
only thing you
skills.
do.
We build houses. We, interact with players, and then fill in the dots. Like this is what I'd want to add to the
We
game.
build our deeds and structures. We build our, whatever it is that we build. Colossus.
Yeah.
We
So
make markets.
when I hear him saying end game, there's two things that I think of. One is, what is that? Like in the original video that we made in 2012, we talked about the different pillars of Worm.
Right.
So when I think, what is the next pillar?
Right.
What is the next thing they're going to add to the game that's going to give us the features in such a sandbox game that we can use to play the game? One of the features is that we skill, right? And that we grind. So another one could be like the economy. Another one is building. Another one is crafting. Another one is fighting. What could they add that would make everybody like give a viable thing for someone to do next? And that's essentially one part of what endgame could be. Something new for someone to do. The other one is what you were saying, progression. So how do we progress one of the pillars that we already have to allow players to continue and want to stick around?
Right.
And we've talked about many different systems that could progress that. We just talked about it, I think, last week, where we talked about the Alliance and the Alliance system overhaul that will allow us to add progression to it. You could add progression to deeds. You could add progression to houses, right? Who cares about like you could build walls and you could do that? How about like features to houses that you could only add after you've built the initial house? Maybe certain features can only be added to a certain size house, or and those features need to be added through an item that can only be made and put into a house specific size, whatever the feature is. I don't know what. These are the types of things that I think of when I think of progression. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think, like, when I think about this idea of progression and end game and that sort of thing, I reminisce about how EverQuest dealt with this situation. And I actually really liked how they implemented it. They called it the alternate advancement system, which was something that you would do after you finished leveling up. You got to the top level, or you got to a really high level, through the traditional methods, and then you had the opportunity to divert some of the experience that you gain towards alternate advancement levels. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and that allowed you to continue to progress in this different system, and you would gain experience and you would gain levels there, and those levels gave you, you know, extra things such as, I think there was like moving faster. Uh, what were some of the other ones? I can't
Oh,
remember.
they were all based on advancing your combat skill
Advancing your combat skills, yeah,
based on the
advancing your
class that you
skill.
are,
Right,
right?
yeah. And they give you like extra bonuses to this, that, or the
They
other
had different
thing.
categories, right? The general categories, specific class categories, and like different ones that you could put points into.
Right. And I always thought that that sort of system would do well in this game because, you know, you get to the point where you're at 99 blacksmithing, let's say, and there's no reason at that point to think, okay, I need to grind more blacksmithing. I'm going to like sit down and just like make needles for the next 5 hours because you're already at a point where your blacksmithing is good enough to do
Some
everything you
people might
possibly
think
could want.
90 blacksmithing is good enough for them. Like, you never know,
Right.
right?
Right. Exactly. And that's where this sort of system would come in place, where instead of you continue like all that work that you're doing to grind those tools, you know, it's going towards experience that you don't really need or aren't going to really benefit very much from. Instead, you could divert that into something else, something that's like another level of blacksmithing. Like you say, okay, 50% of the experience or the skills that I'm going to gain right now, I'm going to divert it towards this alternate system or alternate progression. And as I'm gaining skills there, this might be like advanced or master blacksmithing or whatever, like some other thing. And as I'm gaining levels there, that gives me bonuses to certain things. Like it could be um, better improvement ticks. So every time I improve something, it improves it just slightly more. Or it could be, I don't know, like it could be tons of different things. Like I could make my imping actions faster. I could make my, um, you know, better chance to get a rare on a rare roll or whatever. Well,
So
imping.
you're almost saying, I mean, if I'm getting you right. So there's the progression of skill, let's say blacksmithing, which is like a vertical progression.
Right.
And you're saying at a specific point you'd want to make it more of like a horizontal progression. You know, you get to
Mm-hmm.
90 and now there's many different, you could also say like tree progression. Like there's many different ways you can go, let's say. Uh and in an alternate advancement system like EverQuest, you could go every way
Right.
as long as you can unlock the amount of points necessary or whatever they call it,
Right. Levels or whatever it
levels
was.
that you would need to stick into these
And what was
extra
most
advancement.
important about that system was that there were choices, right? Like it wasn't like you were just leveling up and you just got whatever everybody else got. It was like you leveled up and
So
then you had to make a choice. What did you want to get better at?
so how about that? How about if you wanted even more so? How about at certain level, like level 90, you unlock the ability to become like the master craftsman of this of like blacksmithing, and in that it turns into more of like a tree based skill progression system that you have to choose which one that you're going to be. Would
Right.
you like this in the sense
And they
that you
can
can't be everyone, but you have to
Mhm.
choose which one you want to specialize in?
Right. And it makes it so that, you know, like to the
One
to
guy
the,
specializes in one thing, another guy has to specialize in something else. You can't
yeah,
specialize in all of them. Would
exactly. You
that be
can't
okay?
exactly. That's exactly what I was about to say. Like you make it so that it's a very long progression through this alternate advancement system to the point where you can't do everything. That you have to make choices and that you have to, you know,
Like, here's, you could be the jack of all trades guy that
right.
becomes okay at everything, or you could be the guy that specializes all the way in one, and that can make the best version of these items that only the master craftsmen can make, or something like this. Like, how would you tackle that? Would you do it in that way, or would you do it like EverQuest in the sense that you could potentially get everything?
Right.
It would just take you a long time to do that.
I think that you should be able to get everything. It would just take you a long time to do that, but it should be a long enough time that it will feel like you'll have to specialize in something, at least at first. Like in the same way that Wurm is to begin with. Like, yes, you can be everything, right? You can be a carpenter, you can do fine carpentry and shipbuilding and fletching, but realistically, nobody ever does all of it, right? Like you get this feeling like you have to specialize in something, at least at first.
Yeah.
And then start something else. Like, make it like that.
So you wouldn't lock players into a specific specialty.
Right. Exactly.
But you would have those specialties.
The essence of Wurm is that you can eventually do everything, but it would just take you so long to get there.
And let's say you did something like that. How long would you expect at that point for it to take you to specialize fully into another?
Yeah, I would make it
master craftsman.
At least, at the very least, equal to the way it is with regular skills.
So it should take you twice the amount of time.
Yeah, at least, and possibly more. It would depend on, like, I mean, one might argue that you've already gotten so far in the progression.
Like you're unlocking. I would treat it more like instead of, a skill from, instead of doing something like, oh, well, you reached 100, now go from 100 to 200. It would be more like you are progressing through and unlocking abilities while you're going through. Unlocking certain things that you choose to unlock. Right? The way that the EverQuest alternate advancement system worked is that you would have a list of new abilities or skills, and you would use your points that you gain through experience, and you would choose, like, I want to get this one today, and you would choose that one, and it would unlock that ability or skill, whether it was running a bit faster or like a brand new skill that you could use in fighting. I would probably choose something more like that, like a skill tree sort of thing.
They have to be careful about what sorts of things they put in. Like, running faster is something that would cause an imbalance.
Yeah, I'm sure that they could figure out specific things that could be added that wouldn't imbalance PvP, or they could become a part of what you would want to have in PvP. So at some point people would say, well, this is the best progression that you should do in order to be the best PvP player that you can be.
Yeah.
Instead of leaving it out of PvP altogether. But
we can't really talk too much about PvP because we're not.
That's one PvPers, thing that people could. These are the sorts of things that we think about when we think of alternate, or when we think of endgame content. Just more features that we could use in Wurm, and more progression that we could use with the features we already have.
I remember when we first were talking about this, like in that very first video, our very first video that we ever released, and we talked about how every system in this game is like alternate advancement. And by that we meant that it allowed you, this game allows you to choose different things. Like, I'm gonna choose to skill up like animal husbandry and raise animals.
Yeah.
And then when I get to the point where I'm like done that, I'm like, okay, now I want to work on blacksmithing. Like that's our concept of alternate advancement. It's like I can now advance in something different than what I've been doing this whole time.
Yeah,
Now,
that's
what
definitely one thing.
happens? What happens when you've played this game for years and you've gotten to the point where you've delved into everything that you possibly could want to have delved into this game? Like you've done die making and you've done your weaponsmithing and you've done whatever it is, and you're got to the point where there's not anything else that you're interested in. You know, what what is the next thing? And that's
For
what I
that
think that that
guy.
guy was talking about in when he talked about Endgame. It's like you've just finished everything you want to do. What is
Yeah.
it?
Like, think of it
Now,
this way. I think a lot of players hang on to specific skills in the game. They think of themselves as something, right? Even though you can do everything, you consider yourself like a blacksmith, or you
right.
consider yourself a carpenter. Like, that's your main thing that you do. So if they introduce something where now we can keep going and become a even better carpenter or whatever,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's what he was thinking about.
Yeah. And I mean, there is that, like you were mentioning earlier, like there is the aspect of like what about making something new that you can work towards, like create a new pillar, I think you were saying.
Yeah, that is
Right.
one way that they could go.
Right. And I think that they that I mean retrograde mentioned that they're adding a new skill.
Which could potentially has potential to be a new pillar. You
Right.
never
It has a
know.
potential to be something like we don't know what it is going to be, right?
Yeah. And when we announced it, people were basically like saying, giving their opinions on like what could it be. A couple of them, Valiance and Kaylee, are good
Mm,
friends. They were saying maybe it's glass blowing. That's a
right.
possibility. We don't have glass in the game right now. Maybe they're going to introduce glass. Uh, Another person said maybe taxidermy. That would be cool. Like being able to display the animals that you kill. That
Hmm.
would be like really cool, especially if they had like different ways you could pose them. Huh?
Right.
You have like a spider like glooming over you. Or maybe it could be like certain animals. Maybe they should be. I don't know if you should be able to do like all of them, or maybe that's the skill that you have to get it up to unlock certain abilities to make certain animals into these taxidermy statues.
I'm
Um,
really excited to know what this skill is because like they've added skills in the past, but I feel like they ended up being extremely niche,
yeah.
right? Like to the point where not very many people do, like papyrus making, for example. Like how many
Yes.
people do you know
Make
ground,
paper.
yeah, make paper? It's an extremely niche thing. It's something that people do just because they like need it in the moment, but they don't. It's not part of the economy. People don't sell paper, and people don't use it that very often for that
That's right.
items.
And the
Um,
only reason is because I think they didn't flesh it out. Right? You can make paper, but we can't make books. We can make
right,
paper, but we can't like use it for any reasons. There's no features attached to paper that would make us want to make paper.
right. Now with the farming, or not the farming, the cooking update, or like the 1.3 update,
Mm-hmm.
where it almost seemed like they got it down where everything kind of connected with everything else. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
gardening all of a sudden connected with cooking, and you know just
Yeah.
I, tons of different things just connected with everything else. And I think that if they're going to introduce a new skill, it needs to be that connected.
Have that feeling of
It has to have
connectivity.
that. Yeah.
Okay, so let's try to get our opinions here. If they were going to, like, since they're going to introduce a new skill, would you
Mhm.
want that skill to be a gathering skill or profession skill? First off, would you be
Right.
okay if it was just another gathering skill?
I don't
Would you be
know.
disappointed? How about that?
I'd be disappointed if it ended up being a gathering skill that didn't have
So that gathering
something
skill, let's
else
say,
connected to it.
unlocked certain new items that you can make in a current skill that we have. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I'd be okay with that as long as it connected to something else. Like it couldn't just be like, now you can
How about
gather.
if, and they've done this in the past, so somewhat. Let's say they introduce something and they say, okay, this item that you can now collect through the game, through a new way of harvesting, now you can make 10 more items, and like some of them are carpentry, some of them are masonry, whatever. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think that would be
That's what you could
okay.
do. Here's your 10
If it
items.
if it permeated amongst lots of different things that that people normally do, I think that'd be okay.
Would you be more excited if it was a profession skill that included harvesting? How about like the other way around? So, a brand new profession skill that used already established harvesting skills.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be good.
Which one
I
would you
mean,
rather have?
I'd rather have that. I think a brand new like glass blowing or taxidermy, like one of those. I think I'd much rather have. Um, but above and beyond that, I would way more rather have something that was more interconnected in the same way that the cooking update happened. And I know the cooking update was like a huge major update, overhaul, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that those types of changes to the game are what's needed to progress this game. You know, like I really, really felt like that cooking update was just incredible, incredible for the game. People are eating it up, and they're just like, I know like people in my alliance are just all over what's happening with the cooking update and with the almanac and you know the new the new harvestable bushes and all that stuff is just that's what people are gonna keep, well, that's what's gonna keep people playing this game.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
What would you absolutely want? What would you want in this game that would make you want to,
Continue playing.
like, that would get you the most excited? Let's say that.
Right. When Valiance was
Yeah.
making his post about glass blowing,
Yeah.
that really made me excited because
Yeah.
he thought of so many really cool ideas. Um, so I'm just going to list a couple items. Like he was saying mirrors,
Yeah.
beer glasses, wine glasses, that sort of stuff to go along with the alcohol, stained glass windows. What do you say? Oil flasks as to hold oil in, and hourglasses. Um, other decorative items that could be made out of glass.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would open up a ton of stuff that connects with the things that are already in the game and adds decoration and adds I mean, windows is a big one because that can add to the building of windows and decorate,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, building of like buildings and that sort of things. And just, I think that would be a great addition to the game. I'm not sure about taxidermy in the sense that I feel like that adds one type of thing to the game, and that's only decorative, and it isn't all that interconnected with the other skills. So I think that if of all the skills that have been suggested, I think glass is the one that I would prefer.
I would want a skill that would introduce brand new tools into the game.
Brand new tools.
Yeah. So that it feels like, let's think of it this way. Okay. We are in this sort of medieval time period, sort of fantasy world. So at some point you would think that we would progress as a people to discover some new type of way to do something.
Okay.
And I want that to be the new profession. We've just discovered something that requires new tools, a new way of thinking to give us something really cool that we've never had before in this game. A brand new something.
Okay. So it would require you to make new tools using blacksmithing, let's say, for example.
Sure.
And
Or carpentry. Gotta.
It's like a new imping sort of skill.
Yes.
A new imping skill. Couldn't glass blowing be a new imping skill?
It could, yeah. You're right. It could be one of them. And here's, okay, if they could do glass blowing well, for example, like the vials and flasks and like all this stuff, like wine glasses and beer glasses and all this cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All of that stuff would be really cool if they ever get around to allowing us to put items onto tables and stuff like that. Or hanging stuff on walls, like putting the glass in the wall, that sort of thing. That's going to be like a whole other thing that they're going to need to solve before I say, yeah, all of these new items should be decorative items and stuff that you like where are we going to put these things? Like on the floor? We have enough items to put on the floor. Like if they could figure out a way to put stuff on tables and to I would say just a complete look at how we can decorate items in houses. Stuff on the ceiling, stuff on walls, stuff on tables.
And I know that they mentioned a long time ago that somebody was looking into working on that system. Like putting stuff on walls and on tables and stuff like that.
That would be, its own huge thing. Like, God, we wouldn't need a lot more after we get that.
Yeah, seriously.
For a little while. Yeah, so who knows? Who knows what it's going to be? Hopefully we hear a little more about what it could be. Could be big, could be small. Let's hope that it's big enough that we're not disappointed. People just need to be like, to hear it and be like, oh yeah, that's going to be awesome. Instead of, I was expecting like a lot more based on that hype. But I am very optimistic about what it could be, just because of the way that they've gone about announcing it so far. I can't wait to find out.
Me too.
All right, so before we go, I'm assuming that the rest of these are all just doors. That's true, right?
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
So
we'll have to we're
gonna have to go through. We're gonna have to go through. I don't think there's that many levels. Maybe 2 more or 1 more after this before the bottom. So we did pretty good. After this building, you know what? We don't have a lot more in this labyrinth. We basically have to just do all the finishing touches and 1 more of the big castle buildings,
But we
and
do
we have the
have
cave, which we haven't
the
talked
cave.
about recently, and we
We
have. Yeah, go
did
ahead.
spend some time recently, and you were mentioning all the things that we've been doing recently amongst the labyrinth, but one thing you left out was the fact that we had spent quite a bit of time planning out that underground. Like we don't have a
Did.
full plan yet, but we have our, sketch of a plan.
But we are getting close.
Yeah.
And you know what? If we finished everything else except the cave, we could potentially allow people to go through and then see, like, is this too much? Like, how should our cave be?
I know.
Should the
Yeah.
cave be like hard, extremely hard, or like mind-bendingly? I'm gonna log out of the game for a month hard. I don't know. One of those options gotta be right.
I don't think it's going to be the last one, but
Yeah, I don't think so either. So before we go, we did have, since we've come back, we've had a lot of people comment about on our videos, and we kind of wanted to bring back and just answer some of these things that people were saying, and just comment on them ourselves.
Mhm.
So Adam went around and wrote down some of the questions and things that people were saying. Not too many, and we'll just end this way. Number one noteworthy comment was from Buddha. That's good. So Buddha made a comment on one of our videos. Do you remember which one?
It was a Patreon video that he made a comment on recently. I'm trying to remember whether when I was like
The most recent one, maybe.
I think
Anyway.
what's actually, it's kind of interesting because he posted on an early release video that was on our Patreon. So the one that's up currently that will be released to the public soon.
Well, by the time everyone's watching this, it's released to the public. So he said this: there's a lot of stuff I want to do with some of the half-done features like alliances and teams. So it must have been the most recent video because
before you continue on going, because some of you may or may not know, Buddha is the lead developer of Wurm. He is the one who took over the job of Rolf, who is now making the main decisions for all things.
That is
Wurm.
correct.
Yeah.
So so he is looking at all the half-done features like alliances or teams. He has a loose plan to take a look at after the UI changes are made. Ooh. Because with a better UI, we can put those things out in an easily accessible area, making it a lot easier for anyone who's played the game to see, oh, this thing exists? What do I need to do to get into this and use this feature? For alliances specifically, having an alliance window with things like the message of the day, village lists, and info and permission screens and control buttons like adding or removing villages, alliance members lists and info, maybe even something that integrates with the in-game maps to pin the alliance villages in the new highway system. Then, when you're not in an alliance, that window could show you basic information about what alliances can give and how you go about creating or joining one.
I think all
So
of that stuff is great. I think that's great. Like, what he's thinking about is like the next step after UI integration. And I think that is super important that the lead developer is thinking ahead in that way. I noted though that he didn't mention anything about alliance levels or deed levels in that comment, but
one day we'll say it enough times that one day we'll get something. I don't know, but yeah, that is definitely the great direction. I'd love to see more integrated tools for alliances, just alliance leaders, the alliance members. Like right now, I have no idea who's in our alliance and all the different deeds and who they are and how they fit together and where they're located and all that stuff.
Right.
There should be like a window that just, as a member, lets me know what's going on and who people are and
Right.
like all that
Like
stuff.
I our alliance is pretty active in the sense that I'll log on and like there'll be new people, but like it's hard for me to keep track of who's who. Um, it would be nice to know when that person just like did that person just join, or have they been in and I just like been, maybe they play different times than I do and I just haven't seen them. I don't know.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Like lots more information related to alliances would be great.
Yeah, and everything that we mentioned in the last video where you said like people don't even uh can't even like the leader can't even like do a bunch of stuff, don't even
Right.
know. Yeah, so I think he mentioned that he wants to give more power to the more control, I guess it was the word that he
Yeah.
used.
That'd be good.
Permissions. Yeah, so that's great. I hope that alliance progression could be a part of this new update. That would be cool. Talking about progression as our focus of end game content. So let's see what else. We have another question from Chris DK 234. He got
I
a
think it's just
question.
23, but okay.
Oh, that says 23. That's 4 days ago. Sorry.
Yeah.
Chris DK 23, 4 days ago, according to this, said, I got a question. Do you guys visit other player deeds? And if so, is it only in Wurm Online? Have we done it in the past? Yeah, we had an entire bunch of videos dedicated to us going to different places and just randomly traveling around
Yep.
Deliverance and like other servers that we were on.
We even
Have
had
we
one
done
in
it?
Xanadu, and we visited a whole bunch of people in our alliance recently.
That's true. Yeah. So yeah, we definitely do that. Do we do it recently? We haven't done it one recently. And have we done it in Wurm Online or Wurm Unlimited? We haven't.
We haven't
But
done any in Wurm Unlimited, yeah.
we have played on Wurm Unlimited, and we have, you never know in the future.
Yeah.
We do have some plans. We do have some plans.
have
We do.
plans. Oh, we do.
And I will,
You'll have to let me in on those plans.
they might be further down the line, but
Uh-huh.
we don't just have the plans for the Labyrinth. When we came back, we definitely listed a bunch of stuff that we want to do in
Right.
these video series
Uh-huh.
after we finish the Labyrinth. So we got lots of stuff that we do. But every now and then I'd love to just leave and go and explore different areas. I think that's half the fun of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said recently, I visited. I'm playing on Valiant's and Kaylee's server right now, and I'm having a blast over there. And yeah, just
What's their server
being-
name again?
Mystic Highlands.
Mystic Highlands. There you
One,
go.
one thing I really think is amazing about that server is that they hold events that are unique to that server. Their economy is so tight, and it allows for these live auctions that they hold, and tons of people show up. Like nearly the entire server shows up to these events, and they just have these amazing, get-togethers.
Yeah, it does sound
It's
pretty
awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so next question. John Doe said Java has to be limiting these games progress so much. Whatever happened with Life is Futile? Did you guys try that game? We have not tried that game yet. I followed it, so I know that they have the sort of Wurm Unlimited version, like the choose your own, make your own
Server.
world server version
Right.
right now on Steam, and that they're currently in some kind of closed beta for their MMO version. Not quite sure how that's going, but I do know that it's super expensive to get into it.
I know.
Uh,
From what I
which is-
understand, the Life is Futile was developed by Wurm players. If I'm
there
not
were
mistaken.
players that played Wurm, yes.
They played Wurm and they went off and made their own game that is very similar to Wurm in lots of ways.
So yeah, I don't know. Looks interesting. Maybe one day we'll get around to it. I don't know.
Yeah. If they do
Uh,
come out with their MMO one eventually, then I might try that.
might look into it depending on how it looks at that point and how much
Right.
money it is to enter. Uh, next question. I guess it's the last one here that I see. Knew it.
Just a preface to this one. It was in response to one of our quickfire questions where we were asking which is better, traveling by boat or traveling. Oh no, I think it was which should be faster, traveling by boat or traveling by horse. And it led us to this whole discussion about,
I
yeah, you can go
see.
watch
He
that
says
discussion.
horses do slow down due to lack of eating and getting tired. Believe it. Yeah. I do believe it.
Yeah.
So his question, what part of Canada are you guys from? He is guessing the West Coast. That guess would be wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah,
very
we're
wrong.
from it's okay. We are from the middle of Canada.
I don't know how middle it is.
South
East.
Canada. Southeast.
Ish.
No, okay. Yeah, whatever. We're from Toronto. How about that?
There you go.
There you go. So you can look that up if you don't know where that is. So that's where we are. Yeah, West Coast. We have been there when we were children.
Yes.
Yeah, we took a vacation there. So it's a nice place.
Yeah,
but
I like the West Coast.
It's not where we're from. But that would be pretty cool.
So if you do want to submit a question, that we will probably have another one of these segments sometime in the future, you can do so by just leaving it on the YouTube channel, leave it on a comment on any of our videos, or just come to our Patreon page and leave a comment there. One or the other, that would be great.
And we'll have another one of these segments in the future. So it looks like we're almost done this level, and we'll keep going down. I don't know how many levels are left. Let's take a look. 1, 2, and then the ground level. So I know that this level here that I'm pointing to doesn't really have anything on it, except maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 floors, and no walls. This level, I believe, does have some walls, so it looks like only one more level, really.
Yeah,
And
it's
then-
this level. Once we finish this level, there's one more that has about the same amount of walls, and then
yeah, so it's
pretty
like
much it.
almost done. Maybe another hour or so, and we'd be done.
Yeah.
So that's not bad if our supply of bricks and mortar lasts for that long.
That's that's
It's
the
getting
problem.
low, but we'll keep going, and hopefully that Labyrinth almost looks like it's really getting there. Maybe by the next few weeks we'll have something a bit more finished, where all the buildings are at least all done. Thank you everyone for watching this video. We hope that you join us next week, where we're going to have another, I guess, bonus video about certain topics I know that we definitely want to get to. We've been holding on to them for a while. So until then, keep on worming. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care, everyone. Hey guys, nice maze is what this sign says that mysteriously appeared next to our labyrinth. So thank you whoever wrote that. We don't know who it's from because it's not listed on the actual sign. I guess it's too low quality. But thank you for leaving that, and thanks everyone for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it, and we just wanted to mention, of course, our Patreons and mention here, take it away, Adam.
Yeah, we wanted to, if you liked our video, we wanted to let you know that you should leave a like and click subscribe. And if you really liked our video, then come on over to our Patreon page and check it out, because you get options to get access to all of our content early. And also, there's a few things that we do every so often that are exclusive to Patreon members. We definitely wanted to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters, Revnik, Daspra, Deathwind, Ian, Kyoko Lioness, and Valiance and Kaylee. Thank you so much. And to all of our patrons, we couldn't do this without you. So again, thank you for all of your support.
Yeah, and that pretty much concludes our break. We're going to go back and continue the Labyrinth. So we'll see you guys. Keep worming. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care, everyone.